If we've learned anything from the movies, it's that nothing bad ever happens if you decide to have a wild night before your wedding. Nothing bad at all. Absolutely nothing can go wrong. Unless, of course, you let your horned up best friend run the show. But even though bad things are about to happen, we're here to let you know that 2017's Rough Night is not that bad. Welcome to this edition of It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. We're back, and this time, we're getting a little raunchy because we are talking 2017's Rough Night. And joining me, as always, my lovely wife, Carrie. Welcome back to the show, Carrie. How you doing?
I am great. I'm so happy to be back.
Okay, so when we were talking about movies that we needed to cover onto the show, Rough Night came up. So why is it that you were excited to talk about this film?
Oh my God, I love it. I absolutely love the buddy comedy, and big fan of, I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot later on. Dun, dun, dun. Spoilers. Spoiler alert. Foreshadow. Very Bad Things.
Yes.
I loved Very Bad Things, and this is it's perfect. It is the absolute perfect role reversal, empowering women. It's Women's Day. International Women's Day today.
As we are recording this, it's International Women's Day, yes.
Right.
When we release it, it'll be International, boxing?
March 8th, 2022.
Boxing Women's Day?
Is the date.
Yes.
Boxing, yeah.
When we release this.
Yeah.
Yes. If there was a Boxing Women's Day, as we celebrate.
There was no boxing in this movie, though.
There was no boxing. Not even Foxy boxing.
No.
Which, surprisingly, there was no Foxy boxing in this movie. But before we get into
that would be a whole other club. They were in Miami, dude, not Vegas.
Right?
Miami.
You telling me Miami doesn't have Foxy boxing?
Nothing bad ever happens in Miami.
Nothing.
Leave that for Vegas.
Oh, where's the beep button? There's no beep button yet. Well, don't worry. There might be some beeps because there was a lot of beeps in this movie.
On our fancy new board.
Exactly. We do have new equipment. We're having some fun.
We've got the colors.
Oh, we got the colors. There's lots of colors on this.
Colors.
And there's buttons. And we might explore some of those buttons a little bit later. But in the meantime, before we get into talking about Rough Night, it's time to take this movie and trailerize it.
Oh, yeah. Miami. I only came for 2 days of playing, but every time I come, I always end up slaying. Slaying? Yeah. Take one Will Smith song, change one letter, and you know all you need to know about Rough Night. Watch as Jillian Bell kills a man with nothing more than her hormones as this frivolous fivesome try to Bernie their way through some very bad things in a movie that begs the question, how did this all happen in one night? Scarlett Johansson stars in Rough Night, rated R.
We had a wrap on the show. We have officially wrapped on the podcast. Well done.
Where's my applause button?
Oh, yes, the applause button. We have reached full wrap status. Congratulations.
I'm honored.
Right.
I'd like to thank the Academy.
If only the Academy would recognize our raps instead of all the other raps that get recognized. The Academy clearly is doing something wrong. Take one look at the medal column. You'll understand. But
I'd like to thank Jethro Tull for not putting out an album this year.
Oh, thanks, James and Lars. Okay, so let's start talking about Rough Night. Stars: Scarlett Johansson, Kate McKinnon, Jillian Bell, Ilana Glazer, Zoe Kravitz, and Paul Downs as the groom-to-be. Directed by Lucia Aniello. And again, I apologize. I hope I am pronouncing the names correctly here. But I'm just an idiot in the basement with a microphone. So if I mess it up, my bad. Lucia Aniello, who this is actually her only theatrical release as a director. But she's directed and written a lot for Broad City and Hacks. This script that she wrote was actually on what's called the blacklist when it comes to scripts. And the blacklist is movie scripts that hadn't been picked up that are deemed the best ones that still had to be picked up. The movie was actually originally titled Rock Your Body, and I hate to say it, they picked the better title with Rough Night. When they were talking about this movie, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier on in the show, and Yellow referred to this as the comedic version of The Big Chill. Now, I've never seen The Big Chill, but this does very much feel like a gender-swapped Very Bad Things, which is also similar to a TV series called Stag, which came out while they were filming Very Bad Things. So this clearly is a tale as old as time, which strippers dying during bachelor and bachelorette parties apparently is a tale as old as time. But you mentioned that you are a big fan of Very Bad Things. So is the comparison accurate? Is this a straight gender swap of Very Bad Things, or is this its own thing?
It is very much its own thing. It's not a remake. Yes, it shares the same premise. Bunch of friends get together to celebrate the
impending nuptials. Yes,
the pending nuptials for their friend. And guys, if you learn anything from these movies, strippers on a bachelor party, bad idea.
Right?
Nothing good ever ends, especially when you try to jump the strippers. So, just don't touch, okay? Respectful distance.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying. Because
hands off the merchandise.
It never ends well. It never, if you learn anything from these two movies. However, Very Bad Things was a far darker tone. And I think it was meant to be. It had more of a moralistic.
It was very much a bad actions have bad consequences kind of movie, whereas this one is just...
This is just fun.
It's just a straight comedy.
You know what I loved about this movie is not only the gender swap, but the strength of the women's characters
as a team
versus I really loved the concept of how the guys played it out when they had their own bachelor party and they were doing the wine testing and they were getting crazy with
the wine tasting.
Crazy with the wine tasting and just the absolute, you know what, every single actor they came to play. It was so, they played their characters so well because it was just so off the wall in the gender swap and in the stereotypes that I think this movie is so much fun. Whereas Very Bad Things, a far darker tone. And
I think that kind of showed too in the box office a little bit. The movie had a $20 million budget and worldwide grossed $47 million. So it's not like it lost money, but then again, it's not a big budget action film. But here's the thing though. It came out on a really busy weekend. When it was released on the June 16th, 2017 weekend, there were, and I'm going to count them 4 debuts in the top 10 that week. Rough Night was the lowest of all 4. It debuted at number 7 with a total box office of just over 8 million in that first weekend. But I mean, it was never going to take number 1 because number 1 was the debut of Cars 3. And say what you will about the Cars sequels, you put Cars on the big screen, it's going to make money. Number 2 was the third week of Wonder Woman, the first one, so the good one. All Eyes on Me, which is like the Tupac Shakur biopic, or as you like to say, biopic, that debuted at number 3. Number 4 was The Mummy, the really bad Tom Cruise, The Mummy, which I'm sure we're probably going to talk about eventually. 47 Meters Down, and that one debuted at number 5. And I'm not going to lie, I had to look up what the heck 47 Meters Down was. Easily
sounds like a porn. And maybe your sex tape.
And Rough Night doesn't. We have to have a porno music button now. on this machine. But I had to look up what 47 meters down was because I had never actually heard of it. And it can best be described as Claire Holt and Mandy Moore stuck in a shark cage at the bottom of the water. That debuted.
I think I like my idea of the porn better.
I think so. Although we can keep the shark cage. I'm all for shark cage porn. Number 6 was Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Again, Rough Night was number 7. Captain Underpants was still at number 8. Guardians of the Galaxy in its 7th week was still at number 9. So I mean, like, there's a lot of good movies in that summer release. I mean,
I just have to say I do have severe issue with Cars 3 overtaking Captain Underpants.
okay, but you have to appreciate though. Captain Underpants was already in its 3rd week of a release. It was the debut of Cars 3.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I mean, yeah. I mean, if they came out on the same weekend, yeah, I might actually pick Captain Underpants over Cars 3. And, I mean, that may just be the kids also picking the movie, but, yeah.
Cars 3 was the weakest of the...
And you know what's funny? A lot of people would say Cars 2 is the weakest. I enjoyed Cars 2.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, say what you will about Cars 3 being more a Lightning McQueen story as opposed to a Mater Tall Tales stretched out for 2 hours. But here we are talking about Rough Night. And the reason why we're talking about Rough Night is because of the critic ratings. So on Rotten Tomatoes, 45% tomato meter and a 29% audience score. The critics were more forgiving than the audience in this one. And on Metacritic, it's got a 51% Metascore and only a 4.7 user score. So normally we're sitting here saying the audience is more appreciative of the movie. But in this case, the critics liked it more. Why do you think that is?
Okay, so I did just have to look it up. In comparison, Very Bad Things, the tomatometer was 41%, an audience score of 58%. So the audience seemed to be far more, they enjoyed Very Bad Things more, or they were far more critical of Rough Night.
It is interesting because, you know, again, the stories themselves, at least the outcomes of the stories, are very different. By the way, and eternal warning here, we're going to spoil this movie. We're going to spoil it like cray-cray.
But do watch it.
Do watch it, absolutely.
If you have not already, give it a watch.
And here's hoping that you listen to this and actually do go watch it because it is a fun movie. But the thing is, the critics seem pretty much on the same page. I mean, you're talking about a 4% difference in critic score as far as the tomato meter goes. So they're kind of on the same page with this one. But the fact that there's a big difference in the audience score, it's almost like the audience enjoyed being shocked by what happened in Very Bad Things. And there were some there were some very bad things that happened.
It was a far
very
darker
bad things,
turn, even though for the most part the premise, you know, group of friends go off to a bachelor party. Yes, one was in Vegas, one was in Miami. So that really shouldn't make much of a difference. You know, the copious drug and alcohol use, the calling in a stripper, and yep, oops, stripper's dead now. So now we are completely
killed by hormones,
drunk and stoned out of our mind. We now have a dead stripper on our hands. What do we do? That's got to be some team building right there. I mean, if they weren't the best of friends to begin with,
this is not the corporate outing you should be going on.
So now they have this dead body to deal with, and you know, there's that whole morality tale of, oh my God, I just killed somebody, but who knows that they were here? Maybe can we, you know, hide our tracks and dispose of the body? And I think both movies stuck to that premise. However, Rough Night, in my mind, as much as I led by saying I love Very Bad Things, I always will. Christian Slater.
I was going to say, that's because Christian Slater's in it.
Yeah. Jon Favreau.
Right.
You know, help me out here.
Daniel Stern. Cameron Diaz. Like it is a star-studded cast, but I think
okay, but so is this one in its own right.
Absolutely.
However, this movie just takes it to that next level. It has, I think they have, the same strained storyline in their friendship. They,
but not as fractured.
No, but there is still that
There's
team building.
There's a divide in where they are in their
closer.
lives. Absolutely.
Right.
But one of the things too that I wonder about is people went to go see Very Bad Things and they got the story that they got. And then they probably went to this movie in the mindset of just a gender swapped Very Bad Things. And not only do you get a gender swapped basis of the story, you also get a very different feel tonality wise. You get a different feel outcome wise. And if you went in expecting, Cameron Diaz running down the street screaming her head off because, world has gone to shapoop, you're not getting that in Rough Night. And I wonder if that reflects on the audience score and why it doesn't reflect on the critics score.
Okay, but here's what you're going to get, friends. You are going to get laugh out loud, physical comedy and humor from this movie that you don't get from Very Bad Things. Mm-hmm. Where Very Bad Things takes the very dark turn, and you actually really start to see some of these men go truly mad and almost psychotic from their actions.
Right.
Whereas no, Rough Night takes the lighter turn. And again, it's a friend bonding story. There's tons of physical humor. There's a lot more opportunity to laugh out loud. In your opening, you had mentioned that they're weekend at Bernieing this guy at one point. There is that element of where they try to move the body and they almost make, at one point Kate McKinnon is making out with the dead body. It is, it's funny.
Well,
it's dark.
You wanted a porno.
Funny.
You wanted a porno. This is the porno you got. Be careful what you ask for.
Wow. Again, you know what? I love the laughs. I love the comedy. I love, as I said, even the guys from, the fiance.
Paul Downs.
Yeah, Paul Downs. He was so funny.
Paul Downs up on uppers.
He was so incredibly funny, and quite a gymnast, actually. If I can give him props for that.
I probably, but we're going to get to him in a little bit. But so let's get to the breakdown here, and we're going to start, of course, at the top of the building with Scarlett Johansson. And since we're talking comparison scores here with this movie, I do want to point out that this is not Scarlett Johansson's lowest tomato meter movie ever. In fact, we've already covered her lowest tomato meter movie ever in The Spirit, because that was at 16%, 14%, and then The Perfect Score at 16%. So, with this one sitting around 45, it's actually, it's up there in comparison to her lowest rated films. But I really enjoyed her in this. And, lately, of course, when you think Scarlett Johansson, you think either action, because she's freaking Black Widow, right? Or you think, more serious roles. You think Lost in Translation, and even though I recognize the Ghost World is based on a comic book, she didn't have a very comic booky role in Ghost World. She is a very good comedic actor, and I don't think she gets the cred that she deserves for that. I
think, though, too, if you want to talk personality of the characters, her character was very much supposed to be the very serious one. She was the bride to be, and running for office. So she's in a political position to begin with, very serious. But you know what I loved about the dynamic between her and her fiance was just that she was very much all business. The husband to be, Paul Downs, was just so supportive and loving and accepting and very much he was the yes dear, character. And there was that power shift
to a point
in
though.
the couple,
yeah,
which was quite funny.
But you can almost see how the two of them as a couple kind of balance each other out, especially given the fact that we did see a little bit of her college days before we got to the bachelorette party part of the movie. So we saw just how insanely crazy she was in college, but his personality really did play off of her. And I think that helped, almost ground her to a point so that when she did join her college friends, it was even more of a shift for her. Again, I'm going to be saying this, there's a lot more nuance in these characters than people are probably going to give it credit for. And I think Scarlett Johansson did do that grounding well, especially going up against Jillian Bell and Kate McKinnon as far as the comedic aspect goes. But speaking of Jillian Bell, we need to talk about her. We need to talk about just how insanely crazy she was in this film. But I'm going to toss it to you. What were your thoughts on Jillian Bell?
Okay, I absolutely loved her. Everything from her, she played the needy, crazy best friend perfectly. Mm-hmm. And I think that I could not see anyone, like if you were to look at any one of the other actresses, I could not see any one of the other actresses filling her role, her character, because there was just such a neediness there.
There's a fragility,
a need to belong. And she overcompensates for that need. And I think that's really the turning point, at the end where she writes that lovely card and, her motives, even though she seems to be just the outwardly annoying friend, everyone's kind of got one in their crew, in their back pocket. I actually think I relate a lot to her character myself.
Are you saying you're the crazy one?
I kind of am. Yep. But I can relate a lot to that absolute, that need to overexceed, to have, to just put herself out there so much to make things fun for everybody around her. So I really liked her, and I really think that she played it well, and there was a lot of heart there. There was a lot of needing to belong and not quite knowing or reading the social cues of how to do so appropriately.
I think of all the characters in this film, hers is the most complete story arc because...
And I just have to say, it had to be her that, jumped the stripper. Like it had to be...
Well, she was on the most coke, I think.
It had to be her character that was the one that, came to his demise.
But I think as far as a character arc goes, because obviously, in college, everyone, was that crazy college kind of feel to it. And then when we first get to Miami, and then of course Kate McKinnon shows up, and you see almost like for lack of a better term, almost some single white female style emotions coming out of her and trying to monopolize and capitalize on her time with Jess, Scarlett Johansson's character. But then you see just this arc of not necessarily self-pitying, but almost self-defeatist in that she's seen everything go downhill, and she's feeling like, and in most cases, rightfully so, like it's because of her, right? Yes, she was the one who killed the stripper, but the stripper, quote unquote, I'm using my quote fingers on a podcast, so that just shows you how much of an idiot I am. But she wasn't the one who got the stripper, So she's taking a lot on her shoulders because she feels so indebted to Scarlett Johansson for their friendship. So,
what I loved was the absolute, okay, first of all, her backstory is that she was a school teacher, right? So
Post college,
just
yes.
Just the maybe that need to like break away from her adult life and kind of relive her college days. So I think that there was that kind of like searching for eternal youth. There was also the point in the pivotal moment where the two characters are fighting, and the topic really is about taking selfies and sending back all of these images of, how much fun they're having and how great of a time they're having in Miami. And that is so incredibly important to her because she wants to show her mom that she has friends and that, she's succeeded in life. And so there's really that very sweet moment for her character as well.
And as far as, there, like I said, I think Jillian Bell's character has the best story arc as far as everything goes, which is a lot to say in a movie that really is a Scarlett Johansson vehicle. And I think Jillian Bell added so much fragility to her character. I mean, you could have put another comedic actress in there, but I don't think you would have gotten the earnestness of her character if it's not Jillian Bell. Like, normally when we're doing these movies, there's a list of people who had almost starred. There was none of that for this movie. It's like these 5 characters were perfectly picked to begin with. And yes, I think Jillian Bell, perfect character or perfect actress for this role. Absolutely. And then we come to the crazy. We have to talk about Kate McKinnon. I'm going to say up front that Ghostbusters Answer the Call is not that bad a movie, but the best part of that movie is Kate McKinnon as, for lack of a better term, Chick Egon. And she brings a lot of that fun to this role. But I don't know if it becomes a let's try to out crazy each other match between her and Jillian Bell. What were your thoughts on Kate in this?
Okay, love the introduction of her because she was not one of their original college buddies. At some point, Scarlett Johansson's character had met Kate McKinnon at some point.
Because remember, during the college scene, the beginning of the movie, they were celebrating because Scarlett Johansson was going to do her year abroad. She did the year abroad in Australia. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I must have missed that little tiny detail. It happens. I have movie narcolepsy and fall asleep.
It was all the coke you did.
Clearly.
Gotta get in the mood for this one.
You're talking Coke Zero, right?
No, I'm talking
Diet Coke.
Jolt Cola.
So, but I love the introduction of her because there was that moment of jealousy where Scarlett Johansson's taking a selfie with her, and even around the table, you could just tell the awkwardness. Jillian Bell was clearly, visibly very jealous. The other two ladies were very much almost like used to being out of the picture, quite literally.
A little bit, yeah.
Because there was that scene where I think it was Zoe Kravitz who said, do you want us to be in it? And then she was like, no, never mind. It's okay. Right? So it's almost like out of their group, it's almost the, everyone kind of took on, their own roles, right? Like Jillian Bell, Scarlett Johansson were the besties. The other two had a thing in the past. So, and then there's the introduction of Kate McKinnon, the outsider.
Exactly.
Really, oh my God, she made this movie. She was so funny. Like every word she spoke, I would either giggle or be like, she's perfect. She's absolutely perfect.
It is interesting too, because there's a lot of, and I think what makes this movie work is that these characters aren't just, one line, much like the Smurfs, one word description of exactly what their character is. There's a lot of nuance in these characters. And yes, Ilana Glazer's character and Zoe Kravitz's character, of course, they had their past relationship. They're also in different aspects of their lives, yet they still kind of have a thing for each other. And like their personal and romantic lives are just completely a mess. And Jillian Bell is now feeling threatened because Kate McKinnon is here. And I think what didn't get mentioned, but I think it was probably there in the underlying portrayal of these characters, is that, yes, we talked about how Jillian Bell really needed Scarlett Johansson, right? Because, again, like she brought her into the circle. She made her feel welcomed and appreciated, and she had friends, the whole sending pictures of the mom and all that kind of thing. But what didn't get mentioned, at least not that I heard, okay, but definitely felt, is that when Scarlett Johansson went to Australia for her year abroad, she also didn't have her Jillian Bell. She didn't have her best friend. So it's almost like Kate McKinnon's character was Scarlett Johansson's crush. Not crush, but like crutch, if you will. Like the friend that she needed while she was in Australia. And she wants her circle of friends to be complete. And it just takes a little bit for them to start to melt. Once they realize what they are to Scarlett Johansson, they realize what they can be for each other. Again, there's so much more nuance in these characters than a dead stripper comedy probably normally gets, and it makes it that much better a film. Okay, let's start talking about the Ilana Glazer, Zoe Kravitz combo, because the two of them together kind of have to be talked about together. And it's an interesting dichotomy between the two, because you have, of course, when they're in college and they're together kind of thing, they're very much, you can see why they're together. But then they go very much their own separate ways in their lives, and then they have to try to deal with how they are together again, even though they're not together. I say together a lot, apparently.
I just want to say,
I'm turning this into a drinking game. Together, sip.
To that, it was, I think, so incredibly important that Zoe Kravitz's character was in the middle of a custody battle, and she was separating from her husband, because I think at that pivotal moment in her life, while she's going through such pain and having her family fall apart, she's also reconnecting with a past love, which I think was so incredibly cool. That the timing of their reunion, and they had talked about a few times that the group of girls would get together in the past, and they had charted it 3 years, because there would be times that they would get together, but one would be missing. So in that 3-year period or thereabouts, they haven't seen each other. And to have them reconnect, again, at that emotional time in her life, I think was perfect timing. I just have to say, and I'm probably fast forwarding here, but I loved I loved how the two characters, you have the very, beautifully put together, very arguably very serious character in Zoe, or Zoe Kravitz, who plays Blair, and the almost kind of tough hippie, revolutionary, absolutely fight the power. You've got Ilana Glazer as Frankie, and oh my God, I just have to say that she was so much fun. I want a best friend like her. She is just out there, and she'll get done. She was the one that had the great idea to hire the stripper. Right.
Quote unquote great idea. Get those quote fingers out.
So she's really kind of I think she is very much the underdog character, where Jillian Bell will try to plan every single detail, and she maybe never gets the chance to rise to the occasion.
And it is interesting too, because you have Ilana Glazer's character, who's very loud, very boisterous, very out there. And you could see Zoe Kravitz's character really kind of internalizing a lot. For the record, we also went out and saw The Batman last night. Obviously, before we recorded this, she's phenomenal as Catwoman. And you could see a lot of that, just almost internal acting in this as well. Like Zoe Kravitz, I will not be surprised if she really breaks out over the next couple of years to become that A-level, like, I'd say A-level Scarlett Johansson actress to get out there, because you see a lot of that nuance in that character. And yes, like their arc as well, like from together to apart to, and almost realizing how, for lack of a better term, broken they are apart. But it took this insanity to get back together before they realized that they are stronger together. Since we're in Miami, we have to talk about their neighbors, Ty Burrell and Demi Moore. First of all, seeing Demi Moore there, I'm like, oh, hey, Demi Moore's here. I'll admit, I don't watch Modern Family. So I wasn't as familiar with Ty Burrell as a lot of people probably are. And I'm sorry, I don't watch Modern Family. But having that kind of, plot device next door made for a hilarious scene. But what was your thoughts on having some big name actors as, for lack of a better term, just another obstacle in the road of trying to get out of this bad situation?
I'll admit, I didn't realize watching the movie until I did my research that was Demi Moore.
Really?
Honestly, it didn't even resonate with me, because I was just like not expecting her to be in that role. I don't know. I did not realize. I apologize, Miss Demi Moore.
How dare you?
I know. Hang my head in shame.
You now have to go on a Demi Moore movie watch to correct this.
Do I really have to?
Well, it depends on the movie.
Can't it just say sorry and move on?
We'll go with it.
Okay.
We'll go with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the, I don't know. What do you want to call them? Sex crazed neighbors.
Right.
I don't know. It was almost kind of was it really important to the storyline that they drew in Zoe Kravitz into their?
I think it definitely set the tone.
Their sex games. I mean, was it I tend to wonder, aside from, okay, so the whole premise is that the girls realized that there were security cameras on the property.
Yeah, on their house that happened to be looking at the beach while they were trying to, ditch the body.
Trying to dispose of the body,
exactly.
the dead stripper. So,
which have they not watched Dexter? Don't they know? Don't they know that never works in the long run?
So, I don't know. Was it part of the humor of, or did it help the storyline? Sure, a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was almost kind of I don't know.
It definitely set the tone, I think, for, as soon as they get there, it's like, oh, you want to come join us? Oh, okay. So Miami is sex town. And that kind of, it helps to kind of set up the, for lack of a better term, hormone rush for Jillian Bell, even though it's not directed at her, because it does. It's like we're here from Miami. It's a bachelorette party. Crazy's about to happen, because when you see them leaving whatever city that they left to go to Miami, that's a different feel from there to here. It's like when you land in Hawaii and they put the thing around your neck, they put the lei around your neck. You're like, hey, I'm in Hawaii. Apparently in Miami, as soon as you arrive at your place in Miami, it's like, hey, you want to come join us for sex? Okay, then here we go. Welcome to Miami. I don't know what that says about very bad things in Vegas.
So we're driving swiftly through Miami,
We are
right?
driving swiftly through Miami. Yes. It's going to be pedal down.
Doors locked. Don't stop for gas.
We're going to have the Florida State Troopers driving after us really, really fast. We're like, what's wrong with you? We're going through Miami. We're not stopping.
Okay, but if we get pulled over, then you're going to do, Crazy Lady Astronaut.
Sad astronaut.
Yeah.
Sad astronaut.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of which, we got to talk about Paul Downs.
Oh, yeah.
As Peter, the groom to be. It's funny because we talked about Jillian Bell's character arc and how much she changed from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. Maybe the only person who changed more from beginning to end of movie is Paul Downs, because when we first meet him, like we talked about there with Scarlett Johansson, there is very much almost a timidity to him. Like he's very demure in balance to Scarlett Johansson, but by the end of it, there he is, hopped up on Red Bulls and uppers wearing a diaper because he just pulled a sad astronaut drive across however many miles that needed to be crossed. Like it's a little insane, but it worked because his motivation in this, and he played it up very well, because all of a sudden here's someone who is with someone who he knows had a bit of a wild past. And that's probably why the two of them are together, because he balances her. He just went straight off the deep end. And you can see too, like, the bachelor party, it's a wine tasting. Everyone's very quiet and prim and proper. And, then they're just sitting around. And all of a sudden, like, the fact that Eric Andre is there, love him, think he's great. But it's just to see him go from that to diaper wearing, Red Bull chugging, speed motorist.
Well, you're fast forwarding the moment where he was very defeatist after he got the phone call from Scarlett Johansson that, he's like,
oh, he hit all 7 stages of grief.
So for those of you who haven't seen the movie, she tells all. She basically confesses everything that happened. She tells him, that she maxed out 2 credit cards and that she's been high and drinking and they killed a stripper. And so this is happening. And then during that phone call, there's a bit of a struggle with the phone. And he's like, so is the wedding still
part of the story?
On?
Yeah.
Is the wedding still on? And she's screaming no at that very moment.
But not to him.
Not to him.
Because she's dropping the phone.
Exactly. So that moment where he thinks that his wedding is off, his life is over. Mm-hmm. He has had a bit of a bad
run of things as far as past relationships go. But, because we
cheated on in the past.
Exactly, because he is the nice guy. He is I don't want to say passive. He's not passive, but he's almost too good a guy that women in the past have kind of walked over him, and then now he finds, seemingly the perfect woman. And now she's all coked up with a dead stripper and screaming no into a phone when he asks if they still want the wedding. Like, of course there's going to be a snap, but I like the fact that the group of friends is like, no, you got to do this. It's time.
And I love that. That's where I was going, is that, he fell into this like defeatist depression that, okay, well, he just kind of accepted it. Okay, the wedding's off. It's over. Told his guys to return their tuxes. And it actually took his friend, Eric.
No, I don't know if it was Eric Andre who told him to put. I don't think Eric Andre did the sad astronaut story, but he was definitely pushing to get him to do something. Okay,
so but the point is that he really needed, I don't know, I see in him a guy that just does not want to be alone, and he is willing to do whatever it takes. And
no, I think that was the problem, because he wasn't willing to do whatever it takes, and it was time for him to do whatever it took.
But exactly, but that love that he had for Scarlett Johansson caused him to drive across the city. Like, it wasn't enough to get a plane the next day. He had to be there for her and help her take care of this, help her take care of things, win her back, whatever he had to do. So it was so pivotal. And I think, just the fact that he needed his friends to pull him out of that, temporary, I don't know,
funk,
despair that his marriage is over before it began.
They
and
changed.
He needs Scarlett Johansson.
They helped him change his usual narrative, and it's funny because we're talking about a movie where a bachelorette party leads to a dead stripper and they're trying to ditch the body. On the whole, in that one sentence, it's not a very uplifting movie. But yet, as we're talking about all these characters, we're talking about friendship through anything. We're talking about motivating people to do the right thing for things for themselves. That we're talking about teamwork and togetherness and love through tragedy, and at all of the heart of a dead stripper with tossing the body in the water. It's
turns out it wasn't even the stripper,
right?
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! And there's a lot of just small little bit parts that with recognizable actors, of course. Dean Winters being one of the Diamond Thieves. If you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's the Vulture. We mentioned Eric Andre, and then of course there was Karen Soni, who plays Dopinder from Deadpool, and just these small little bit parts. And when they pop up, it's like near the end, as we were watching, I'm like, oh, it's Dopinder, right? Like just these familiar actors in smaller roles that just make you smile when they pop on the screen. It's really good. And I think a lot of that too is because of the writing and the directing. And we talked about this, how Lucia Aniello, I think, really brought together not just a good cast and not just a good script, but a good pacing. Like with a lot of these kind of comedies, you can get these lulls where it's like, okay, get on with it. At no point did this movie ever feel like it was lagging. Did it ever feel like they were just putting in stupid, crazy things to happen to make it seem even stupider or crazier? Everything happened for a reason. It happened when it needed to happen. And pacing wise, it felt like a much shorter movie than it actually was. And that's always a good sign. When the movie doesn't feel the hour and a half, you know it's a good movie.
That, and it's only an hour and a half, which really, after seeing The Batman...
This is the only spoiler you're going to give about The Batman. Bring a cushion for your ass.
Bring a
It's
banky.
a long movie. Bring a blanket.
And a stuffed Smurf.
And a stuffy. Even if you buy the stuffy while you're there. True story.
True story.
But I think one of the things that surprised me is that this is her only theatrical release as a director. Like, just watching this film, take the box office aside. Take the critics and the audience score away from this. This is a really good movie. It's funny. It's well paced. The comedy is really good, but not over the top, right? It's not stupid for stupid's sake. Stupid things happen, but the acting around it is smart. I really think that she needs to be directing more movies aside from TV shows. I mean, obviously she's doing really well for what she's doing, but she deserves more. This is much better than the critics or the audience give her credit for.
I, however, want to know how all of this went down in one night.
Well, maybe.
Like, what I really love about this movie is that the build, right? The absolute build of like, just when you think it can't get any stranger, then let's introduce, two diamond thieves that are presenting as police officers and basically, putting the girls' fears aside. Oh, no, it's fine, You guys are free to go. Everything's fine.
Mm-hmm. And it really felt like she gave the actress or the actors space to explore the character, and I think that really helped as well. Like you could do this movie with a bunch of one-line description caricatures instead of characters, and that depth, I think, fills this movie out as well. I have to laugh because sometimes we talk about the soundtrack, right? Because sometimes the score is so much better. But as I was watching the end of the film and you get to the credits, and there is, and I had to look this up, the Kiwi song from Kate McKinnon at the end of this film. It's like the fact that she's singing this song about everything that happened in the film at a political victory party. And I printed off the lyrics because I want to hear the song like with a full orchestra instead of just with a piano.
P.S. She has a lovely voice.
She does. And apparently that is her singing too. It isn't just like someone else, stepping in and providing the vocals, like a Josie and the Pussycats. Also great movie. But like the fact that you have a song, sometimes you kill a man when he's taking off his clothes for you. Like, okay, I want to hear this song more in depth now. Thank you kindly. If there's ever a music video for that, it needs to happen. It's time to talk about who our MVP is, as we do with every movie. So I'm going to toss it to you first. Who is your MVP of Rough Night?
Okay, I actually have a tie, if I may. A tie.
You cheat.
Because
I'll allow it, but you cheat.
I could not choose who my bestie of these girls would be. I want to go with Frankie and Kiwi.
Okay.
Or Pippa.
Pippa.
I absolutely...
You can't call her Kiwi because she's from Australia.
I loved Kate McKinnon so much. I think she was funny. She was down to earth in that, she had that whole hippie meditative state going. She was very much the, all right, let's get done. It's not, she was ready to get down and dirty and do what she had to do
in the beach with the dead guy. She got down and dirty.
Right. To make things happen. Well, I mean, Zoe Kravitz and the Neighbors, she took one for the team as well.
Yeah, well, at least they were alive.
What did Jillian Bell do for them? Really?
Jillian Bell clearly just provided Kate McKinnon with a partner the hard way.
And, what I liked about Frankie is that she never changed.
No.
Her character from college was the same as her character of today, or at least in 2017. The character of Frankie, I don't think ever quite grew up. And I think she is perfectly fine with that. Mm-hmm. And she is extraordinarily strong and very true to herself. And I love that about her. So, yes, I am going to...
You have co-MVPs.
Going to go for the two.
Okay. Well, I'm going to disagree with you on my MVP.
It's about to get real.
I will admit that I do like your description of how Frankie never really kind of grew up out of that college. And that really does create a lot more conflict emotionally with Blair, because Blair did grow up, but I think Blair sees the error of her ways in growing up the way she did as far from her college days. And Frankie symbolizes what she could have had. Again, that's a good part of the story. But my MVP is Scarlett Johansson. And I have to say that because something has to anchor the crew. Okay? They're here because of her. And I think if she tried to match the crazy of Jillian Bell, the insanity of Kate McKinnon, the emotional conflict of Ilana Glazer and Zoe Kravitz, I think you would have had too much going on. And I mentioned earlier, Ghostbusters Answer the Call. And I think one of the biggest things I didn't like about that one in comparison to other Ghostbusters films is that you had the four main Ghostbusters, Kate McKinnon included, all trying to out crazy each other. And it didn't work because you need someone to be the Egon of the group to center and ground the group in a sense of reality. And I think Scarlett Johansson was perfect in this. It made her characterization of Jess made sense why everyone was friends with her and why everyone was there for her. If she's the center point of the friendship circle, it makes sense why. Because Jess, despite being a politically motivated, not politically motivated, but at least in the middle of a political campaign and could have been super stressed because the campaign wasn't doing well and her opponent was winning even though he was doing all this stupid crap and whatever. There was so much that could have brought her character down, but didn't. There was so much that she could have turned it into a negative, and it didn't. I think though if I had to cheat like you and make a co-MVP, because clearly we can, it might be Lucia Aniello, the director and writer, because you could call this a gender swap, Very Bad Things, but I think that takes it's a discredit to the comedy and the heart that is in this film. Very bad things happened, and very bad things happened in the movie. It's a very dark, it's a dark comedy, and I use comedy lightly because even though it's more shocking, some of the things that happened, this is a comedy.
Again,
it's a fun comedy, yeah.
With Very Bad Things, you see each character's descent into madness, included the bride-to-be, Cameron Diaz, right? Like everybody.
We are getting married come hell or high water.
Yeah. Everybody in Very Bad Things, I think, had a very dark...
Everyone was broken.
Yeah, exactly. However, in this, as we've discussed for the past hour or so, there is a lot of heart. And this really is, it is a buddy movie. It is, bachelorette party, celebrating a marriage to come up. And I think what I loved was the end scene. Yeah. I loved that they kind of, one could argue that the Scarlett Johansson's character, searching for perfection, would want the big wedding. But I love at the end where they were just like, you know what? Let's just get married here.
Yeah, at the foam party.
There was just so much love there within the group of girls, within the dynamic between Jess and her fiance Peter. At the end of the day, it was all about love. Did a stripper / jewel thief have to die along the way? Sure. But you know what? Let's celebrate and get married anyway. In this beautiful home in Miami. So.
I will say there is a post-credit scene that really almost rewards Jillian Bell for coming around and becoming more accepting, not just of Kate McKinnon, but of herself. There's a reward for her at the end of this film, and it brought a lot of heart to the character that felt the lowest about themselves. So again, solid writing all the way around. But you do realize that with Very Bad Things, at a 41% tomato meter, Very Bad Things also qualifies for this podcast. So somewhere down the road, we can revisit that movie.
Oh, let's do it. I am on board for that.
But until that time, thank you, Carrie, so much for joining us on this one. By the way, if you want to watch Rough Night, you can find it on Netflix. It's definitely worth the watch. If you like just silly, fun, antic comedy, it's a hoot. All the way through, it's a hoot. The critics and the audience definitely got it wrong. If you think there's a movie that is unfairly maligned or that just needs a little bit of extra love, hit us up on Twitter at NotThatBadCast. We'll watch the movie, we'll dissect it, and we will have a lot of fun as we search for the A grades in B movies. This is It's Not That Bad. Until next time, take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. we're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.